Tonight, we want to begin tonight's show with an apology. Apologies aren't something you often hear on cable news on this or any other show, but we're offering one anyway. There's no lawsuit forcing us to do it, no court order making us or skittish advertisers. We're sincere in this. We mean it. It has to do with Joe Biden. Biden, as you know, is planning to run for president again. He's been back in the news this week in all the wrong ways after a series of women accused him of inappropriate physical contact. Biden's first accuser, Lucy Flores, described what it was like to have the former vice president kiss the top of her head.
I felt him get closer. He leaned in and was like right behind me on my body. And he leans down, smells my hair, and then plants this big, long kiss on the top of my head.
Another accuser, a woman called Amy Lapos, remembered that Biden once gave her an unwelcome Eskimo kiss.
He walked up to me and wrapped his hands around my face like that and pulled me in and started rubbing noses with me. It was for like a good 15 seconds, and I remember thinking, is he gonna kiss me?
And then yesterday, two more women came forward. One of them recounted that Biden had once hugged her, quote, a little too long. Well, this is how presidential campaigns die. So, desperate to end the story, Joe Biden released a statement today promising not to touch strangers anymore.
In my career, I've always tried to make a human connection. That's my responsibility, I think. I shake hands, I hug people, I grab men and women by the shoulders and say, you can do this. Now it's all about taking selfies together. Social norms have begun to change, they've shifted, and the boundaries of protecting personal space have been reset. And I get it. I get it. I hear what they're saying. I understand it. And I'll be much more mindful. That's my responsibility. My responsibility, and I'll meet it. But I'll always believe governing, quite frankly, life for that matter, is about connecting with people. That won't change. But I will be more mindful and respectful of people's personal space. And that's a good thing.
There's something sad, pathetic really, about watching a 76-year-old man apologize for not understanding selfie culture. You'd hope your own golden years would be a little more dignified than that. But Biden's a politician, and he had no choice. They drove him to it, and so did we. And that's the point of tonight's apology. When the story first broke that Biden had been passing out Eskimo kisses and sniffing other people's hair, it was irresistible. You couldn't not laugh at it, and we heartily did. We mocked Joe Biden as a compulsive hugger, a cuddler run amok. It was too amusing. But what we should have said every bit as loudly, and what we apologize now for not saying, is that hugging is not sexual assault. Eskimo kisses aren't rape. That used to be obvious. It's not obvious anymore. And so we're sorry for helping to blur the distinction between human affection and coercive immoral behavior. The last thing this country needs is more aggrieved people who think they've been assaulted because a senior citizen hugged them wrong. And so we apologize for adding to that nonsense and anti-human hysteria. None of this, by the way, is a defense of Joe Biden the man or his run for president. We disagree with him on a lot of things. Just a week ago, we told you about his craven and absurd claim that America should get rid of our English legal tradition. Biden says things like that all the time, and we'll keep criticizing him when he does. But hugging people is not a sin. Sorry, it's not, even if many on the left would like to criminalize it. Listen to Nancy Pelosi describe the lessons she has drawn from watching Joe Biden.
I don't think it's disqualifying because I think disqualifying is with what your intention is. I do think this about communication in general beyond this. I'm a member of the Straight Arm Club. I'm a straight armor. And all of this. Just pretend you have a cold and I have a cold.
Let's pretend we all have colds. That's the world Nancy Pelosi demands we live in. But what kind of society is that? A place where everyone has a cold? It's a sick society. It's a cold and antiseptic place, a fearful place, a society where censors watch and judge your every action, a place where it's unwise to get too close to other people. In a society like that, exuberance and human warmth are too risky to display in public. It is a joyless PC hell. Nancy Pelosi and so many on the left already live there. You can see it on their faces. They are miserable and afraid. They insist that we join them. We won't go. A country where you're afraid to touch other people is a country we don't want to live in. Heather McDonald is the author of The Diversity Delusion, and she joins us tonight. Heather, thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you.
So just in the past 24 hours, we've been rethinking this question. We sort of jumped headlong into the mocking of Joe Biden, which was fun, I will say. But then I heard Nancy Pelosi say what we just played her saying, which is we really ought to approach other people as if we all have colds and have a arm's length relationship with people we're not related to. What kind of society is she describing?
An inhuman one, Tucker, one where there is no forgiveness, there is no acceptance of differences of behavior. We're all supposed to be for diversity, right? How about accepting the diversity of an older generation that has a different style of engagement, that has not been terrorized into frigid self-criticism by the feminist harpies that cannot understand that there are different human beings, there are different ways of relating to people. This is going to end normal human intercourse as we know it if they're allowed to get away with this. These females have all said there was nothing sexual about it. Okay, the conversation should end there. But the new standard now that feminists are setting is they determine by their subjective experience the character of experiences. There's no reasonable person standard. We're certainly not going to accept the male's view that, as Biden said, I had no intention to offend anybody. I was not intending anything sexual. None of that matters now. If a feminist feels offended, then the interaction is objectively offensive. And that is a recipe for chaos and alienation.
I think you're exactly right. A recipe for what we have, which is chaos and alienation, increasingly. So I think a lot of us, I'll speak for myself. I looked on at this and there's something amusing about watching the left eat itself.
Yes.
Because they have to adhere to their own ludicrous standards. They're living in the PC hell they created for the rest of us. But what's happening to Joe Biden is what they plan for the rest of us.
Uh-huh. And what he plans for everybody else. So it's hard not to take a certain fiendish glee in this.
Yes.
Because it's certainly turnaround is fair play. This is a man who unleashed the war on due process in campus tribunals, who has unleashed every single feminist trope about phantom rape culture for the last 3 decades. Who says belief survivors. So it's purely just what he's getting. Nevertheless, I urge you, Tucker, to step above pure political vendetta.
Yes.
And say, no, what's at stake here is the livability of human society. Young people have to understand old people. People have to be a little flexible. But the feminist worldview is brittle, it's intolerant, it's unforgiving, and it's utterly narcissistic. These females are saying their worldview, their subjective experience should be now the norm for everybody else, regardless of whether it is objectively reasonable what their interpretation is.
So what would you say to non-liberals? The temptation is always going to be to engage in exactly the behavior that you criticize in others. In other words, they're destroying politicians. Bernie Sanders apparently, or maybe leaked this against Joe Biden. So now conservatives can become every bit as aggrieved.
Yes.
And use the same style. But that is a trap, I think.
Absolutely. You have to realize that precedent and principle matters. And the precedent that you're setting will be used against you. There's always changes of power. And the ideal for human experience is to live by something that is not sheer partisan vengeance, and to set principles that you're happy to live with for yourself and for other people. So again, in this case, as tempting as Biden is as a target, and certainly, he's the strongest contender against Donald Trump, but his real sin is just his own history of stoking the feminist furies. Again, we should not go down that path, because I can guarantee you there's going to be a whole line of Republican politicians who deserve to succeed, who are going to have photos taken of them when they've got an arm around somebody, just simply because they are a physical human being. And I'll tell you the other thing that we can see where this is taking us. Antioch College, which was roundly marked in 1990 for its affirmative consent policy for drunken campus hookups, and said every last grope has to be explicitly agreed to. And everybody said this is crazy. 2 decades later, every college has an affirmative consent.
That's exactly
now,
right.
they are applying affirmative consent to platonic touch. Now a daughter objects to her mother hugging her because she didn't get consent. This is where this is going to take us, Tucker.
It really is dystopian.
It is.
The kind of sterile world
It's a
that they're
sterile world
imposing on us.
of
Heather McDonald, I can't think of anyone who could have explained that better than you just did. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tucker.
This is a Fox News alert. As the immigration crisis continues and intensifies in the Mexican border, illegal immigrants are being linked to murders here in the United States. Trace Gallagher is tracking 2 cases right now for us. Trace?
And Tucker, you talk about a revolving door. 40-year-old William Martinez Chavez is an admitted MS-13 gang member. Back in 2000, he was involved in the fatal stabbing of a Long Island man. Martinez Chavez was convicted, sent to prison, and in 2017, he was deported back to El Salvador. But yesterday, Martinez Chavez was rearrested in the same part of Long Island where he killed a man 19 years ago, except now Chavez claims he is no longer an MS-13 member. ICE says, quoting, "It is the job of the brave men and women of ICE to take those who break the laws of this country off the streets and see that they are removed back to their home countries. Although the numbers show if he's gotten into the U.S. twice, he will likely return." Meantime, 33-year-old Jorge Rios was arrested this week in connection with the death of a 45-year-old nanny in New Jersey. Carolina Cano's body was found last week in a lake in a Jersey City park. Cano had apparently gone for a jog and never returned. The medical examiner says she was raped, strangled, and submerged in the lake. Apparently, surveillance video led police to Jorge Rios, who apparently did not know the victim. Listen.
Our understanding is that it was strangers, and he frequented the park, and we feel real comfortable that we have the right person based on his statements.
Turns out the suspect in this country, it was in this country illegally and had been deported twice to Honduras. ICE says it will take custody of Jorge Rios following his case, despite limited cooperation from authorities in New Jersey because of sanctuary city policies. Tucker.
Unbelievable story. Trace Gallagher, thank you very much. Well, the United States appears to be facing one of the worst border crises in its history. How much blame does the government of Mexico deserve for this crisis? A Mexican government official will join us in a rare appearance after the break.
This year, WrestleMania week hits even harder as SiriusXM's Busted Open celebrates its 10th anniversary with a special live broadcast Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Dave LaGreca and his
No, I had mentioned, and I think that's a quote from about 15 years ago.
Right. Has
Tucker,
your position
you still
changed?
look the same as you did back then, and I hope I haven't gotten too old either.
No, we've been talking about this for about 15 years. That is true.
The Fox administration,
right? But
but
has your position changed?
That's the problem, my friend. That here we are, 15 years, maybe more. And the situation at the border, the migration, immigration system in the United States is still broken. I remember a dozen years ago, my friend, we were talking about how the United States, Canada, and Mexico should work together as 3 independent nations. I'm not pushing for opening borders, but yes, we should work as a bloc. We have a good thing going.
We do. We do.
Commerce between
so, but let me ask you. Hold on.
$1 billion every day. Every day.
So, but why should tell me this?
Some officials in the United States are now saying, let's close the border.
Some officials in the United States. So, but why isn't the Mexican government stopping migrants from Central America before they get to the United States? Instead, Mexico is encouraging them to come here. That's not the behavior of an ally. They're not welcome. They're not here legally. We have a process by which people can come legally. They're not going through that process. So that's an act of hostility. You can lie about it all you want, but we both know that it is. So why are we paying you money?
No, don't call me a liar, my friend. Let's talk about these immigrants. Number one, these are individuals coming, yes, from Central America. These are good people.
Why don't you stop? If they're good people, then why don't you?
They're right now about 20,000.
Why don't you let them stay in Mexico?
No. These are families. 50% of them. Just a minute, my friend. The Mexican nation has been giving them visas. They can stay till up to a year in the country of Mexico, work in Mexico.
Why just a year?
They are in a legal way, my friend, which is internationally the way to do it. They are asking.
But hold on, wait a second.
United States.
Wait. But I'm confused. I'm confused.
For decades
wait, that sounds.
There's
first of all,
wrong with them.
No, actually, it sounds a little racist to me by the standards that you have explained. So you have these very good people. Wait, hold on.
No.
And you let them stay for a year on work permits? Why not let them do what we do? Hold on. No. Why not let them stay forever and vote in your elections, but remain Guatemalans and Hondurans unto the seventh generation, as you said about your own people, about Mexican citizens? Why not let them do that and stay forever? And they could maybe account for like a third of your population after 100 years. Why would that be bad? Why are you kicking them out after a year?
These are individuals that are escaping hunger, that are escaping violence.
Why not let them stay?
There are about 250 million people around the world that are migrating, looking for a better life. These individuals have chosen these good people. These are not bad people.
Then
these
why
are not criminals.
Hold on,
they
please
are
answer my question.
The
Look,
United States for asylum.
But
now,
why
the
not?
United States
Why don't
can
you
decide whether it wants to or not?
Slow down. They're in Mexico. You allowed them over your border. Simple question. Why are you kicking them out? They're good people who just want to work. Why aren't you taking advantage of that?
Mexico today, if you look at the last, I think it's 6 years, if you look at the numbers, Mexico has now deported more people to Central America than the United States has. The numbers have diminished and diminished
so
and
they're
diminished.
good people, but you're deporting them.
The next time we're on, we'll discuss them.
Okay.
No, but the immigrants going to the United States have diminished. There are less and less people going in. Though the United States needs about 300 to 400,000
We're out of time. I still don't understand why these great people are being deported by Mexico. Mexico is a hostile power that is seeking to undermine our country and our sovereignty.
If you allow me.
If it's true and very short, it's got to be both those things.
Let me get one last thing in.
All right.
Will you? Very short.
Very quick, very
I think
true.
we are being tested today, both in the United States and Mexico, how we are going to treat other human beings. In the state of Guanajuato, we are going to do the right thing.
Okay.
In the Mexico,
it's nauseating. You're not doing the right thing. Actually, now I'm getting mad. I'm going to stop this.
United States that I love so much will also do the right thing.
I appreciate it, Juan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.
Democrats politically motivated support for illegal immigration, and they do support it, and it's obvious, and it's becoming more obvious with every passing day. Now a presidential candidate on the Democratic side, Julian Castro, is calling for illegal immigration itself to be decriminalized. Don't believe us? Watch this.
Instead of building a wall or closing the border, we should choose compassion instead of cruelty.
The feeling from this administration is that we are in a full-blown crisis and that they are overwhelmed by it. How do you think?
I don't believe their narrative. I don't believe the BS.
We should decriminalize people who are coming here, crossing the border. We need to increase the number of refugees that we take into this country. And if we're not careful, if we don't get this right, in 20 or 30 years, this nation is going to be begging for immigrants to come to this country.
By the way, for the record, you're a racist if you don't agree with any of that. Guy Benson is an editor at townhall.com. He hosts, of course, Benson and Harf on Fox News Radio, and we're happy to have him tonight. Guy, I don't think I've ever seen anybody say it as clearly as Mr. Castro did.
Just in terms of the decriminalization of illegal entry into the United States. It shouldn't be illegal to come here illegally. Yeah, it's in his plan. And so I've heard a few responses from people on the left when I've pointed this out at Town Hall and on Twitter. Some people say, well, he's sort of a third-tier candidate. Why do you necessarily care? Why are we putting so much attention on this proposal that he's put forward? He is running for president. He was a cabinet secretary in the previous administration, and he is on the short list, I think, for a lot of people, potentially to be a vice president. He's a serious player, I think.
That's really the answer?
Some people have challenged me on that, which I think is interesting.
Okay, so I'm just a cable news host. Let's eat house cats. Oh, but I'm just a cable news. I mean, you should be accountable for what you say, shouldn't you be?
Correct. And I would be very curious to know how many of his fellow Democrats running for president actually agree with him on some of these very significant ideas that he's bringing to the table. I think Beto O'Rourke has also at least entertained this notion of decriminalizing illegal entry into the United States. Tucker, I think if you and I had a long discussion about immigration, we would probably disagree a fair amount. I'm not a border hardcore hawk. This is not my top issue. It really isn't. When I was reading, I think it was the Washington Post story describing Julian Castro's policy proposal, I kept having to reread the paragraphs to make sure I was understanding correctly. Decriminalize illegal entry, stop almost all detentions of illegal immigrants who get caught and arrive here as an element of enforcement, reassign ICE and have other people carry out enforcement, whatever that would look like, and cease or halt all construction of current or additional border walls, which the Border Patrol have been begging for. And there's really
Can I
not
ask you a
that
question?
many.
As you invite the world in, which is what you just described, an invitation to the world to come, would you provide them with guaranteed health care, housing subsidies, free public schools? I mean, that
Well, I certainly would not.
No, but with the welfare, I mean, can you have a welfare state with open borders?
No, you can't. And like economically, it doesn't work out. And so I just looked at these just point by point going down, and I said, even if I were open to some of these ideas, and many of them I'm not, why would he be introducing this now in the midst of this border crisis, which even his fellow former Obama administration official, Jay Johnson, has said it is a real crisis. They were on the same cabinet together under President Obama. Is he not willing to listen to Jay Johnson on this point? He said, and the Post quoted him, that his premise is the border is more secure today than it has been in decades. And to me, that just kind of feels like a fantasy world. And so much of the problem that we're currently facing at the border arises from the incentives that are embedded into our current laws on immigration, on declaring, yourself as someone who needs help, right? Someone coming to this country as a refugee or what have you. Some of our incentives are out of whack, and you look at the incentives that would be inherent in this proposal. It's basically a magnet saying, please come, we're going to stop enforcing our laws.
But no one even makes an economic argument in favor of it. I mean, if you cared about the country, you would bother to explain how this improves the country. But they don't bother. They explain only America's obligations and America's sin. I mean, it's really, if you treated your kids this way, they'd know you hated them.
I think that this is the closest thing that I have seen to a policy that would be tantamount to a modern equivalent, I guess, of open borders. And I'm wondering if at some point arguing proactively, affirmatively in favor of illegal immigration as if it's a moral good, if that's the next step.
It appears to be it's moving very fast, as you've just explained. Guy Benson, thank you very much.
Sure.
The Mueller investigation is over. It revealed, drumroll please, that Russia collusion was a sham from day one. Not everyone is paying attention to reality. Many are in denial. Some Republicans are in denial, too, and that's why they're continuing their own Russia investigation in the United States Senate. You may not have known that. We didn't either. We're shocked. You will be, too, when you hear the details.
Over 100 extra music channels are now online and on the app. Sample some of them this week on your satellite radio. Listen to decades of music with 70s, 80s, 90s. Cool down to mellow beats with chill hop. And right now, get grilling with classic rock barbecue. Explore Sirius XM's extra channels all month long on Spotlight Channel 4.
Take a look around your home's exterior. Those grimy green and black algae, mold and mildew stains on walls, walks, decks, awnings and outdoor furniture are winter's miserable leftovers. They look terrible. It's time to clean them up. The easiest way? Use the original and still the best you can buy. 30 Seconds Outdoor Cleaner. Our family invented 30 Seconds over 40 years ago. And since then, homeowners nationwide, north, south, east and west, have used it for long-lasting results and to make their homes look their absolute best. Yours can too. Choose either our hose-ready sprayer or the concentrate that you mix 50-50 in your favorite sprayer. Spray on, let stand, lightly brush heavily soiled surfaces, then just hose away algae, dirt and grime. With 30 Seconds, it's clean when you want it clean. Don't be fooled by imposters. There's only one 30 Seconds Outdoor Cleaner. Find it now at your favorite home improvement store or garden center.
Hey guys, Ken here from the award-winning podcast Today's Growth. If you had to choose sides, which camp would you rather be in? Would you rather have time and no money, or money and no time? Did you know that 95% of U.S. adults by choice have settled into these categories? Much more interesting is that 1 out of 20 people have built their life around achieving simultaneous control of both time and money. What choices did these 5% make that the others didn't? My friends at Income Store have shown both households and businesses how to build second, third, and even fourth revenue streams for the express purpose of gaining control of time. When it comes to helping folks create their next revenue model, both Forbes and Inc. recommend Income Store as a can't miss. Could your household or business use an additional revenue model that doesn't solely depend on you? If so, you need to check out IncomeStore.com. That's IncomeStore.com.
Selling your home is one of the biggest decisions you will ever make, and hiring the wrong real estate agent can cost you thousands. How do you know who to trust? Introducing Homelight.com, the innovative solution that makes it easy to find the best real estate agent for you. Why? Because on average, top real estate agents sell homes 8 days faster and 9% above asking price. And that can mean thousands of dollars back in your pocket. The best part is, Homelight is 100% free, unbiased, and it takes less than 2 minutes. Unlike some other real estate sites, agents can't pay to advertise on Homelight. Instead, they use data from over 38 million home sales to recommend top real estate agents. With Homelight, it's easy to find the top performer who can sell your home faster and for more money. If you're planning to sell your home this spring, now is the time to find the best real estate agent. Visit homelight.com/news to get started today. That's HOMELIGHT.com/news. Homelight.com/news.
For the next 2 years, Democrats will control the House of Representatives. There are a lot of problems they could be addressing in this country. The death of the middle class, first among them, falling life expectancy, the opioid epidemic, smartphone addiction. Hope someone will pay attention to that. The rise of China, obesity. I mean, really pick anything. When political parties focus on the country's real problems, something is going right, and we're grateful for that. That's not what's happening now. Today, the House Ways and Means Chairman Richard Neal formally asked the IRS to hand over the president's tax returns. More than 2 years in, that is still the only obsession in the Democratic Party, the ruling anxiety. How do we undo the 2016 election? Everything else, including you, is secondary. And by the way, is it a good precedent to have politicians decide that they can pull your tax returns? Of course, it's the President of the United States. He should have given them out voluntarily. But do you want to allow Congress to pull your tax returns? Probably not, actually. Well, here's another update. In a pre-dawn raid the morning of January 25th, 66-year-old Roger Stone, unarmed in a house with no guns in it, was dragged from his house by a small army of gun-toting, flashbang-carrying federal agents. Pre-dawn raids are supposed to be a surprise. That's why they take place before dawn. Somehow, though, and this was the mystery of the season, CNN was there ahead of time to cover the whole thing.
Exclusive footage you're looking at right now from CNN as the FBI arrives at Roger Stone's residence in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, taking him into custody. They arrived before dawn there, before 6 a.m. or just after 6 a.m. A dozen officers were told.
FBI, open the door.
So how did CNN know to be at Roger Stone's house before the raid took place, before the sun came up? Well, that's just journalism, they told. It's just a lucky guess. Just our instincts as shoe-leather reporters who spend a lot of time gathering facts, not just bloviating about how much we hate Trump. We weren't tipped off by the Mueller team or anything. Correspondent David Shortell called it, quote, a reporter's instinct, whatever that is. But Stone himself was not certain of that and said so on this program at the time.
It's disconcerting that CNN was aware that I would be arrested before my lawyers were informed. So that's disturbing. If it was a dangerous situation, which would merit the SWAT team, well, then CNN's cameraman would be in danger. I don't know why they would be allowed to be there.
So what's the truth about what happened? Well, you'd love to know. You're not going to find it from CNN, obviously. You find it from the FBI. But the FBI won't say. The Bureau recently refused a records request from the Federalist for any emails sent to CNN on the day of Stone's arrest. They said the request was, quote, overly broad and used vague, undefined terms, which it did not. The FBI also refused a Freedom of Information Act request for emails sent to or from Josh Campbell. That's the CNN analyst who once worked for the FBI, Robert Mueller, by the way. Once again, they said it was too vague when, of course, there's nothing vague about that. It's very precise. So in addition to the questions we've already asked, here's another one. Why is the FBI so zealously protecting Jeff Zucker? And by the way, it's not just the FBI. Senator Lindsey Graham, we must say, his office asked the FBI in January whether anybody tipped off CNN in advance. We asked Graham's office, what did you hear? So far, the office has refused to tell us the response they got. But we're going to keep on it until we find out, because it's worth knowing. Meanwhile, in Washington, it's like the Mueller investigation never happened at all. The Senate Intelligence Committee, chaired by Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina, is continuing the Russia investigation. They did send a subpoena to former Trump advisor Sam Nunberg. They ordered him to turn over all of his communications with Roger Stone. We asked Burr's office to explain, why are you continuing the Russia investigation? But they didn't respond. Burr, by the way, is not a Democrat, though he's doing their work for them. He is a Republican. Sam Nunberg joins us tonight with an update on the story. Sam, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
So it's shocking, I think, to most of us who thought that the core of this story, the question of Russian collusion, was settled by the most elaborate investigation of my lifetime, that the Republican chairman of a Senate committee would be issuing a subpoena to you about your contacts with Roger Stone, as if anyone could care or would have reason to care. What's the purpose of this?
Remember, I already met with the Senate committee in January. I turned over some documents that were in their requests for me. And the documents I turned over, around 50 or 60 or so. I turned over less, by the way, to Nadler. And suddenly I then get a request that they want to review all these documents that I've had with communications with Roger. But Tucker, we've had our answer, just like you said, from Mueller. Because even when Roger was indicted, remember, it's all process crimes, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, nothing to do with conspiracy to defraud America connected to the Russians. So if Mueller's team knows for a fact that Roger never coordinated or colluded with the Russians or anybody associated with the Russians, I don't see what the Senate would need these emails for.
Have you been charged with a crime?
No.
By the Mueller investigation? Did you
never.
collude with Russia in any way?
No, I did not collude with Russia.
Roger Stone has not been charged with colluding with Russia, by the way. We should also
and by the way, I am sure that was an internal debate, because I was in there with the Mueller team for hours, and the people that Mueller selected, such as Jean Rhee, who would have been conflicted out of representing Donald Trump civilly because she had represented Hillary Clinton, I am sure was pushing to get that conspiracy.
So why would Senator Burr, a Republican, again, the chairman of this committee, be doing this?
It's a really good question. You know, the vice chairman, the ranking senator on the Democrat side, Warner, had said last year that he thought that this investigation would be wrapped up by October of 2018, and then he had to rescind that when he got pushback from the Democrats. And when you look at Burr's already said, well, we don't see any collusion. He said that publicly. I'm really wondering, it's either, in their defense, they just want to get all these documents, review them to give a clean bill of health, say they went through everything because they're probably dealing with the Democrats on the other side who just want to investigate everything in Russia, Tucker, or it's, you know, something with Roger. It seems to, I find it that they selectively picked Roger to throw that indictment out at the end was just gratuitous.
It's bizarre, but just for the record, you're allowed to have conversations with Roger Stone and not be pulled up before a Senate committee too. You don't have to explain yourself.
After I've cooperated. And the idea that, you know, this Senate, what have they ever done really to help Donald Trump? He's getting victories on his own. The China fentanyl announcement.
How about the country? I mean, there's a whole country. We've got 320 million people here waiting for help. And they're subpoenaing your conversation with Roger Stone. Senator Burr, by the way, is always welcome on the show. We'd love to hear. Maybe there's an answer we haven't thought of. He's welcome on the show anytime, sincerely, to explain that. We'll hope he'll come. Sam, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. George Washington University's school mascot may soon be abolished. You can imagine why. Guess. 3 guesses. White supremacy. Is it a symbol of that? What's the truth? Brian Kilmeade joins us after the break.
I think it's more so that, like, there are students on this campus who don't feel comfortable with it, and so then it doesn't really matter what other students think if it makes someone comfortable.
Yeah, well, I think the word colonial, like, evokes an image of, like, white men coming to take people's land.
The Final Four is on Sirius XM.
The dream has become reality.
Michigan State, Virginia, Auburn, and Texas Tech remain from a field of 68. Starting Friday, Sirius XM Channel 84 is in Minneapolis, talking to college basketball's biggest names and breaking down the games.
Michigan State soaring to the Final Four. For the first time ever, Auburn is going to the Final Four.
Hear every exciting second of Westwood One's Final Four coverage on Sirius XM Channel 84.
Ooh, hey, thanks for driving, Jimmy.
Hey, no problem. Hop in. The guys are probably already at the restaurant.
Ooh, wait, let me run back up to my office. I'm expecting an important fax.
A fax? Oh, yeah, that makes sense. This being 2019 and all. Should we stop at your house next? You know, just in case someone tries to reach you on your rotary phone?
A lot of my clients send me contracts by fax.
You know, eFax lets you fax by email, right? You know what email is, don't you?
With eFax, you can ditch your fax machine forever. Fax anywhere, anytime, by email, even from your phone.
All right, go check your fax machine. While you're up there, I'll sign you up for a free trial at eFax's website. Oh, forgive me. Websites are pages on the internet.
Yeah, I'm not even listening anymore. Be right back.
Hey, bring us back an audio cassette for the drive, okay?
Still not listening.
Try eFax for free at efaxradio.com. It's a special site for SiriusXM listeners. That's efaxradio.com.
Studies show Americans are getting less sleep than ever. Think about it. How did you sleep last night?
At Boll & Branch, your sleep is all we think about. Hi, I'm Scott Tannen, founder of Boll & Branch. 5 years ago, my wife Missy and I set out to give you the best sleep of your life by creating the softest, most comfortable sheets in the world. But don't take my word for it. Our products have thousands of 5-star reviews and are loved by 3 U.S. presidents. Every Boll & Branch product is designed with you in mind. From our signature soft sheets to our cozy throws to our plush towels. We even label the long and short sides of our fitted sheets, so it's that much easier to make your bed. We want you to love your Boll & Branch purchase, so we give you a 30-day risk-free trial. And right now, you'll get $50 off your first set of sheets plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com with promo code NEWS. That's BOLL and branch.com. Promo code NEWS to get $50 off. bollandbranch.com, promo code NEWS.
With over 500,000 satisfied donors, Cars for Kids has become the most trusted car donation charity. Cars for Kids also accepts donations of real estate. If you're spending money on a property you don't use or hassling with out-of-state properties, donate to Cars for Kids instead. It's simple and easy. Cars for Kids real estate specialists will ensure a seamless transfer of your property. They'll take over all taxes, maintenance, and insurance obligations. You'll receive a tax deduction for the full appraised value of your property. To donate, visit carsforkids.org/real estate or call 877-CARS-FOR-KIDS today to learn more. That's Cars with a K.
America's #1 cable news network. This is Fox News on Sirius XM Channel 114.
Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman, both actresses from Los Angeles, made their first appearances in court today. They were joined by several other parents, all of whom have been accused of paying bribes and engaging in other fraud, sometimes elaborate fraud, to help get their kids into good colleges, as well as USC. The actresses did not enter a plea. Frozen food entrepreneur Peter Sartorio, though, has become the first parent who says he plans to plead guilty in the scandal. Sartorio allegedly paid $15,000 to have his daughter's ACT score fraudulently improved. We'll continue to follow this story because it matters. There are a lot of people in this country, people who think they're better than you, who aren't even trying to play by the rules. These ones are simply unlucky enough to be caught, as you know. Well, for almost 100 years, the George Washington University sports teams have competed under the name the Colonials, as in colonial America. You might think that's a pretty unexceptional name, but if you do, you probably also think Joe Biden's hugs aren't sexual assault. Students know better, though. They just voted to change the Colonials' nickname. In a recent video, kids told Campus Reform that name is deeply hurtful.
I think it's more so that like there are students on this campus who don't feel comfortable with it, and so then it doesn't really matter what other students think if it makes someone comfortable.
I mean, colonial is kind of a touchy word.
I did sign the petition. I do understand that it is offensive.
Yeah, well, I think the word colonial like evokes an image of like white men coming to take people's land.
But like the whole like colonial thing is like a little white supremacist-y.
When you use the word like in between every other word and put a Y at the end of nouns, you're probably a college student. Brian Kilmeade is not a college kid. He's a Fox and Friends host. He also hosts a new Fox Nation series, What Made America Great? And of course, you'll see him filling in on this show. We're proud of that. The great Brian Kilmeade joins us tonight. Brian Kilmeade, do you feel the name colonial, does it like make you feel uncomfortable like a little bit?
Well, you know, no, of course not. And I mean, it's unbelievable that you chose George Washington University. By the way, they don't make you go to George Washington University. They don't? You have to get in, which is tough. And then you have to pay a tuition, I think it's between $75,000 and $80,000 a year. And once these students got there, they realized how offended they were that they were there. At a school named after our founding father that did the unthinkable, put a band of colonists who lived in colonies together and took out the world's superpowers in just under 7 years because we had the tenacity to fight for freedom and this thing called liberty. That's a thing of pride. And Tucker, no one said Washington was perfect. No one said the colonists were perfect. But man, they were great. And what they did changed world history. And what they're doing, these students naively are doing, is trying to change a figure that's called a mascot that looks like George Washington and make him go away. And the two names they're thinking about, which should fill you with pride, are hippos or river horses. Hippos or river horses? Do you see the Star Spangled Banner and think of hippos and river horses?
It's just so stupid.
Or do you take pride in knowing I went to George Washington University?
I'd love to ask kids on that campus, okay, you don't like our colonists. How are the Portuguese colonists in Brazil? You know, how are the Spanish colonists all through Latin America? Were they better than our colonists? I mean, we had the best colonists in the world, just as a factual matter. But leave that aside. Is there not a single adult on GW's campus who can say, shh, it's the colonists, please settle down? Like, let's talk about something real. Is there no one there who can say that?
Well, on top of that, Tucker, people are looking at George Washington, studying his background, and saying, I'm offended. They're looking at the colonists with their frailties, and no one ever defends slavery. But I can't go back to the 1700s. They were born into these institutions. They didn't invent them. At Hofstra University, today there were protests and votes about taking a statue of Jefferson off Hofstra University for the second straight year because he had slaves. Well, Jefferson was born into that culture. He also gave us freedom, wrote the Declaration of Independence, and dare I say, none of us would be here, only Fox, would be here at this situation and their current situation and experience American culture without Jefferson and without Washington.
Well, of course.
We put up statues and we commemorate not because they're perfect, but because they did extraordinary things in their time. Study, don't judge.
Especially compared to everyone else. I mean, it's right compared to what? But how can you be against the mascot name, the colonists, and still call your college George Washington University? Is it just a matter of time before they change the name?
Absolutely. Unless someone sobers up, someone in a leadership position stands up, and you know, he got criticized for it, but in an aside, President Trump came out and says, who's Jefferson and Washington next? Yeah, they're going to try to take him off the money. Of course. They're going to try to keep this up because we're evaluating history with the wrong lens, as if the people in the past aren't as great as us. And I give you the best example. In 2008, Barack Obama says, I believe marriage is between a man and a woman. Was he a horrible person? Because by 2012, if you said that, you were bigoted. Well, that's how people evolve and change. Our society's not perfect, but we realize it and we try to get better. Was it right for women not to vote until 1919? Of course not. We got better, we solved it, we improved. That's what makes America great. We evaluate our problems and move on and commemorate the great people that make it happen. Washington and Jefferson, not perfect, but great. And who are we in this generation to judge them through our lens? They're missing the point of history.
A nation of very judgy children, for sure. Brian Kilmeade, great to see you. Thank you for that.
I look forward to seeing you in person one day, Tucker.
Thanks, man. Well, speaking of judgy children, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is facing new claims that she colluded with her chief of staff to violate campaign finance law. We've got details on that after the break.
Faction Talk on Sirius XM with comedian Jim Norton and host Sam Roberts in the morning.
Listeners like being spoken down to.
Oh boy, you're going to enjoy this, baby.
Sirius XM's Covino and Rich.
The conversation about butt cheeks? Such a buffoon.
Former pro skateboarder Jason Ellis.
I don't like to toot my own horn, but I'm probably the best there ever was. So if you don't like it, then it's probably your problem.
And comedian Ron Bennington.
I could live like a vampire. The only problem is I don't have the build for it.
Faction Talk is on Sirius XM, channel 103.
I'm Nick Soboleski, a SelectQuote agent with a true story of how SelectQuote goes to bat for you buying term life insurance. A while back, a man called me who had prostate cancer. He asked if I could beat a very high quote another life insurance agent had given him. I said, let me see. Well, I took his pertinent information, then shopped the highly rated, price-competitive companies we represent, and found one who pre-approved him for a premium way below what he had been quoted. When it comes to term life insurance, no other company touches SelectQuote's experience and expertise in finding the right policy at the right price for almost anyone. How about you?
For your free quote, call 800-935-6700. That's 800-935-6700. 800-935-6700. Or go to SelectQuote.com. We shop, you save.
With PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
Mike Campbell here, serial entrepreneur. Patriot Software provides cloud-based accounting software that is super easy for business owners and powerful enough for accountants. With Patriot's accounting software, business owners can easily invoice customers, receive payments, pay bills, and track the money in and out of their company without needing a college degree in accounting. And with Patriot Software's patent-pending cash-to-accrual toggle switch, the business's accountant can log in, view the books, and make complex entries to ensure the business has accurate financial statements. Easy but powerful. Everybody wins. Go to patriotsoftware.com. Use promo code XM and get 2 months of accounting software free. That's patriotsoftware.com.
patriotsoftware.com. Accounting and payroll. Keep your time and money.
This is Shell Rotella gas truck. This is truck oil. This is hunting, fishing, camping way off the grid oil. This is climbing mountains in the rain, snow, and mud oil. This is hauling the world's greatest tailgate party halfway across the country, oil. This is not top-down cruising to the corner store for cupcakes oil. This is Shell Rotella gas truck, just for your truck and SUV, oil. Find Shell Rotella gas truck at your local Advance Auto Parts today.
Weeknights, Laura Ingraham is taking on issues with a pragmatic stance. It's the Ingraham Angle. Weeknights at 10 p.m. East, 7 West on Fox News Channel, Sirius XM Channel 114. Howard Schultz Town Hall. The former Starbucks CEO speaks out on a potential presidential run and delivers his strategy for America's most pressing issues. Thursday, Fred and Martha anchor live from Kansas City, Missouri. Watch America's election headquarters, Town Hall with Howard Schultz.
The world's most famous 29-year-old, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is facing new allegations tonight that she violated campaign finance law. According to a newly filed FEC complaint, the Congresswoman and her chief of staff operated in an illegal subsidy scheme. They ran a network of interconnected political action committees. The complaint says this allowed her to raise more money than she would have been allowed to legally. Melissa Francis is a Fox Business anchor, co-host of Outnumbered, a frequent guest on the show, and very good at detail. So we've asked her to come on tonight and explain what this complaint says.
Well, I read the complaint, and the way it reads, it's actually a very clever scheme. It looks like they set up a company, and you could be sort of a venture investor in this company. And they said it was going to be like the Uber of political campaigns. So anyone could, kind of come up and start their campaign, and you could get political services for way below market price. The problem is that the company went out of business. It seems from the complaint, that's how it reads, and this is all alleged. But the company basically spent most of its money on her campaign. The investors never got anything back. They just helped her campaign. So, if you think about that in the worst light, it sounds like if you were a finance smart money guy, which her chief of staff, who you saw in that photo, yes, is a tech multimillionaire. I mean, I'm sure your chief of staff is also super wealthy, but I don't know how common that is. But anyway, he's good with money, and he, set up this company. Now, is it illegal? Who knows? As I've said before, the people who write the laws about campaign finance are these very crooked politicians who are trying to hang on to power, and they're the ones that write the laws. So I don't know if it's illegal. The complaint was brought by a conservative group, and that's her defense. She says this is the right attacking her. We'll see how the investigation goes. But I think the main point is that she was supposed to be about getting money out of politics and about transparency. Where's the money coming from? And what we're seeing is more and more evidence that she's got all kinds of money that helped her get elected, and it was very murky and shady. There was nothing transparent about it.
Everything is irony. That's what I'm starting to suspect.
And hypocrisy.
And hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy just abounding everywhere. So definitely keep an eye on this one. You remember last time she had set up a limited liability company so that you couldn't look at how the money was being spent. We want to be fair. Let's see how these investigations turn out. But they seem to, at the very least, be that dark money that she talks about being evil and get rid of the dark money. Unless it's, I guess, helping her campaign. I don't know.
That's exactly right. The socialist sets up the LLC.
I hate hypocrites.
Yeah, I do too.
I hate hypocrites.
They're everywhere. Melissa Francis, you are not one of them. Great to see you tonight.
Thank you.
Melissa's on final exam tomorrow night, Thursday night. Don't miss that.
I'm studying now.
Good.
I'm
going to
win.
It's a
Mark
tough
my
one.
words.
Thank you. Well, over the past couple of decades, really one of the biggest stories, and we don't recognize this enough in this country, is the dramatic decline in crime. It has made everybody's life better. People are safer. Cities that were completely devastated going back to the riots of 1968 became really jewels. New York City, of course, first among them, but many others. It's progress, but it's now at risk. Jussie Smollett is the first criminal to go free, but he certainly isn't the most dangerous, as a new wave of far-left prosecutors, many funded by George Soros, are rolling back criminal enforcement in cities across this country. That's not an overstatement. It's happening in a lot of different places. And Rafael Manguel is Deputy Director of Legal Policy at the Manhattan Institute, and he follows this for a living. He joins us tonight for an update. Rafael, thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me, Chuck.
So this is a trend. It's not just isolated examples. The DA in San Francisco and Philadelphia, Boston, New York. This is happening nationwide.
It is. In some of the biggest jurisdictions in the country, which means that a big chunk of the American public is now sort of living in places that are controlled by these left-wing prosecutors. And so, look, I mean, we have elections throughout this country for all sorts of offices.
Yes.
It's not unusual that a Democrat wins, right? I mean, that's
right.
not the problem. The problem here is that this new wave of prosecutors really sees themselves as kind of criminal justice reformers first and law enforcement officers second. And that's where I think the problem lies, because the danger is that they all subscribe to this notion that, you know, the criminal justice system in the United States, it's not that it needs, you know, sort of adjustments at the margins. It's not that it needs sort of incremental reforms.
Right.
It is entirely corrupt. It is irredeemably racist. It is overly draconian. And so they're operating from that presumption. And, you know, one of the things that they're pursuing kind of full steam ahead is large-scale decarceration. And that is a really scary thing.
And they were helped by the Congress. I mean, I know we're all supposed to be happy about this bill, and I no doubt there are many people who should be let out of prison. I believe that. I don't believe in being overly punitive. But over large populations, if you start letting a lot of people convicted of serious crimes out of prison, what happens?
Crime goes up. You know, and crime goes up. You know, a lot of crime is committed by the people who are getting out of prison pursuant to our current policies, right? So the question is are we going to be able to let out large swaths of people without a negative impact, right? At the current rate, the vast majority of our prison population is housed in state facilities.
Right.
83% of people who are released from state facilities go on to reoffend at least once. That's an incredible number. That means
it is.
Less than 20% are successfully sort of re-entering society.
Yes.
And, you know, people say, well, we should be rehabilitating. We should. We should absolutely be trying to find the best way that we know how.
It's hard to know how.
It is hard to know how. And, you know, the programs that have shown success, and there have been some, they're hard to scale, right? And so I think it's a bit of a dangerous move when we have a large number of urban prosecutors now sort of operating under the presumption that we need to decarcerate.
I agree. It seems totally reckless. And if you cared about normal people, you'd pause before doing that and ask what's going to happen to the crime rate. Are we seeing measurable increases in crime?
Yeah, we're starting to see them in different parts of the country, right? I mean, Chicago's had significantly elevated crime rates since 2016, even though it's been a high crime area for a long time compared to what it was in 2011, 2014. It's been higher. St. Louis has been going through the roof. Louisville has probably seen some of its highest crime rates in history. Baltimore is seeing one of the highest murder rates in history. And even in Brooklyn today, where Eric Gonzalez, who's kind of been one of the newer poster childs here overseas, Brooklyn North has seen almost a 68%, I think, increase in murders. Now, it's a short period of time, right? So the numbers are low and they're likely to fluctuate a lot, but it's not encouraging. And, you know, you hit the nail right on the head when you said that it's really regular people who are going to bear the brunt of this, right? I mean, the crime tends to be concentrated in low-income inner-city neighborhoods that are largely minority, and these are the people that these prosecutors say that they're sort of representing in this. So it's
all on their behalf that we're doing this.
Exactly. But the unfortunate reality is that they're going to bear the brunt of the cost of these policies to the extent that they play out the way I think they will.
Very quick, we got 10 seconds left, but crime dropped off a cliff in New York City, at least heavily in part because of policies put in by politicians in the police department, Bill Bratton at the NYPD.
That's right.
Does anybody still believe in those policies? Why are we abandoning them?
I think so, but the unfortunate thing is that the political class in cities like New York and LA and Chicago have fortunately bought into this mass incarceration meme and the idea that our criminal justice system is irredeemably corrupt, and that's not good.
They're corrupt and decadent, I would say. Rafael, thank you very much. That was interesting and sad.
Thank you so much.
We're out of time. But the good news is we'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. as regularly scheduled, the show that is always and will forever be the sworn enemy of lying, pomposity, smugness, and especially groupthink. We'd encourage you to DVR the program if you're able to figure that out. If you can, congratulations. Good night from New York City tonight. We're here. Sean Hannity is right upstairs, and we're going to throw it over to him.
And say hello. And by the way,
Regularly scheduled. This isn't a surprise when I come on at 9 right after you.
No,
Regularly scheduled.
But it's a happy moment nonetheless.
I am one of the original on-air people here.
I've been watching you many years, Sean Hannity.
I'm getting old, that means. That's all it means. All right, Tucker, great show. Good to see you.
Thanks, man.
Busy news night. Welcome to Hannity. We have full coverage. We're on the ground tonight at the crisis at our southern border. Our own Lawrence Jones, he is standing by. Full report from Laredo, Texas. Also, Chief Customs Border Protection Agent Raul Ortiz will also join us from the Rio Grande Valley. First, we begin our ongoing Hannity watch into creepy, crazy Uncle Joe Biden. He's not only having a bad week, he's having a bad day every day. Wait till you hear what we get to. It's so bad. It is. All right. Anyway, as we first reported last night, 2 more women are now accusing the former vice president of inappropriate conduct, including one sexual assault survivor who claims Biden awkwardly placing his hand on her thigh. And, of course, Biden's creepy conduct has been an open secret for years. Dozens and dozens of pictures. They show very bizarre behavior and videos, cringe-inducing moments. Now, creepy, crazy Uncle Joe is coming to terms with the fact that most people don't enjoy being touched, kissed, having their nose rubbed together, smelling their hair, and stroked by a complete stranger and massaged. Notice one thing that's missing. See if you can figure out what is missing in what he's saying here.
Social norms have begun to change, they've shifted, and the boundaries of protecting personal space have been reset. And I get it. I get it. I hear what they're saying. I understand it. And I'll be much more mindful. That's my responsibility. But I will be more mindful and respectful of people's personal space. And that's a good thing.
Good thing. He's not going to smell anyone else's hair, rub noses with anyone else, grab them, pull them in, kiss them, grope them. He forgot 2 magical words. I'm sorry. We'll get back to that. Now, multiple women accusing Biden of making them feel extremely uncomfortable, violated. Here's the big question. Where are the I believers from the Kavanaugh hearings? Doesn't this immediately disqualify Biden in the eyes of the Democratic Party? If it was a Republican, it would be outrage. Apparently on the left, it's only worthwhile to stand up for women if it is used to bludgeon a political opponent. Look at third-rate actress, for example. Remember we saw her at the hearings of Kavanaugh? There's Alyssa Milano. She was one of the leaders of the Believe All Women charge against Kavanaugh. As insane as some of those charges became, surprise, surprise, when it comes to Biden, Milano is striking a much different tone, tweeting, quote, I believe Joe Biden's intent has never been to make anyone uncomfortable, and that his kind, empathetic leadership is what our country needs, especially now. By the way, I wonder if crazy Uncle Joe ever used any locker room talk. Anyone in the media going to ask him that? Now, Speaker Pelosi is also making excuses for creepy Uncle Joe. Now, this is insane on her part. She did give him a piece of this advice. By the way, if you're into getting in people's grills, smelling, nose rubbing, kissing, holding, fondling, touching, maybe you want to take this advice. Listen.
I'm a member of the Straight Arm Club. I mean, I'm a straight armor. And all of this. Just pretend you have a cold and I have a cold. But I think that it's important for the vice president and others to understand is it isn't what you intended, it's how it was received.
Just pretend like you have a cold. Join the Straight Arm Club. That's it. Well, Joe and everything will be fine except one little itsy-bitsy problem. There's someone at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue who's not going to let Democrats sweep Joe Biden's creepy behavior under the rug. Take a look.
Our former vice president, I was going to call him, I don't know him well, I was going to say, welcome to the world, Joe. You having a good time, Joe? Are you having a good time? My people tell me 2 years. What do you think? 1 week, sir. I said, General, come here, give me a kiss. I felt like Joe Biden.
All right, that's funny. One more bad piece of advice, news, creepy, crazy Uncle Joe. This story's only going to get bigger and bigger. Look at the New York Post from this morning. Being weird and inappropriate is a pattern of behavior for the vice president. Let's not forget, one time, I think 10 years, he worked at the Washington Post, journalist, author Ron Kessler, reported that Vice President Joe Biden, not that long ago, apparently loved to swim naked all the time, even in front of female Secret Service agents who were really uncomfortable with that. No swimsuit, nothing, lap after lap after lap. You know, skinny dipping, totally nude. Kessler called it offensive, abusive to his security detail. In that sense, it's not funny, is it? Biden's office had no comment when these claims were published. And tonight, while many Democrats rushed to Biden's defense, one person is noticeably not defending his former VP, his boss. Remember, this is storybook, man. He is an African-American. He is clean, bright, and articulate. His former boss, President Obama. And by the way, his creepy behavior is now Biden's, of course, in the spotlight. Other potentially more serious scandals are brewing for him tonight. Don't forget, he has to run on his and Obama's disastrous economy. The dumb Iranian deal, his crazy comments, and there's tons of them, and positions on racial issues. You know, spent a whole week on his apology tour on Anita Hill and integration. And coming up, the Hill's John Solomon will join us with a live report on Biden's extremely sketchy international conflicts of interest that potentially resulted in millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars going to close members of Biden's family. We first turn to our Hannity watch at the crisis at our southern border. DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen is calling the rapidly deteriorating situation a Category 5 hurricane disaster. Now, Border Patrol agents, custom officials, they are overwhelmed again tonight with this influx of illegal immigration. Currently, there are 1 million illegal immigrants inside the United States with active final removal orders. Some are violent criminals, some wreaking havoc at a community near you. A convicted killer, MS-13 gang member, previously deported, just arrested in Long Island, New York, after illegally re-entering the country for a second time. Oh, yeah, he was involved in a manslaughter case and convicted. In Maryland, 3 MS-13 gang members, well, they just pled guilty to killing a person with machetes. Their immigration status is unknown, but the MS-13 gang is primarily composed of individuals from El Salvador, one of Central America's countries where the migrant caravans are being formed. And now President Trump is threatening to close the southern border completely if Mexico does not stop the massive new caravan that is headed our way. Yes, another one. A very serious situation. The left, they're not getting the memo. Doesn't matter how many homicides, sexual assaults, violent assaults by illegal criminal aliens are impacting American families every day. The Washington Post, what are they worried about? How the crisis at the border is going to impact avocado toast. Congresswoman Omar tweeting, this is a fake emergency. Donald Trump is lying about the border in order to build his monument to racism. Okay, on this program, we actually take our job seriously. So instead of screaming that walls and borders are racist, well, we actually sent our very own Fox News contributor, investigative reporter Lawrence Jones to Laredo, Texas, where he toured the border, spoke to agents on the ground. He's going to join us in a minute, who assured him this crisis is very real. Why don't we maybe listen to the people that are there, that are doing the hard work, protecting the country from drugs, gangs, cartels, etc. Take a look.
It is without a doubt a crisis. Anyone, you can ask any expert, from anyone that has dedicated their life to border security, to security of this country, they will tell you that we're almost beyond crisis. Our immigration system is near failure.
Maybe Congresswoman Omar should actually do her job. Take the time, go to the border. I've been there, 12, 13 times. We played it a lot. Maybe she should see with her own eyes what's really going on. Now, we do have tonight coming up a full report from 2 areas in Texas that you're not going to see anywhere else. Please stay tuned for that. We do turn now back to our top story, creepy, crazy Uncle Joe. Now, while his creepy behavior is grabbing most of the headlines, a possible international corruption scandal is brewing under the surface. Here's what we know tonight. When Biden was serving as vice president, his son Hunter landed a lucrative job at a massive, guess what? Even Paul Manafort will hear about this, Ukrainian energy company. Remember Hillary, Uranium One? Oh, when that company came under investigation over corruption claims in Ukraine, Biden used his influence as vice president of the most powerful country on earth. He actually got the lead Ukrainian prosecutor fired, and he bragged about it. There's a little detail we'll tell you on the other side. Take a look at him bragging.
I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said, I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a got fired.
You're not getting $1 billion. I'm leaving in 6 hours. That prosecutor's not fired. You're not getting that $1 billion. Now, the story behind the story. Full report. Investigative reporter, The Hill's John Solomon, is with us. Now, the prosecutor that he demanded gets fired, or he will not give them $1 billion, and they got 6 hours to make a decision, and he's on tape, as you just heard, bragging. Hang on, I got to fix my tie. He's on tape there bragging how he got the guy fired. Well, who was that prosecutor investigating at that moment, John Solomon?
Yeah. Yep, you're right. At that very moment, Ukrainian authorities tell me they were preparing to request an interview with Hunter Biden to question him about more than $3 million of funds that were being transferred out of Ukraine into accounts in the United States tied to Hunter Biden and his company. And when the vice president intervened, the prosecutor got fired. They moved the case out of the prosecutor's office to another agency. They shut it down, and it was swept under the rug, never to be investigated again.
Okay, so his son was being investigated. Do we know how much money? Now, I understand his son was actually on the Air Force II, right?
This is going to China. That's a different trip. Yeah, Peter Schweitzer did some great work back about a trip, I think it was in 2014, where Hunter Biden went on the same trip with his dad to China and walked away with a big payday in China as well. So there's a pattern here of Hunter Biden being in the countries where the vice president has a foreign policy portfolio and somehow walking off with some nice paydays.
Okay, so they're walking off with a nice payday. Hunter Biden obviously is there in China on Air Force II, at least in that one instance. As Peter Schweitzer talks about. But in this particular case, so the vice president of the United States tells them, you fire the prosecutor, and we know beyond any doubt that that prosecutor that he's bragging about, that he got fired, or he was going to use American taxpayer money as leverage, that he did it to save his son from the prosecutor who was investigating him?
That's certainly what the Ukrainian authorities believe. And they're telling me tonight, Sean, that they've been trying to get